Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, dear viewers and listeners of IBN TV Africa. And we invite you to this English talk show. Here in studio, you are with me, Mujahid Rashid, together with Sheikh Abdullah Shafick Aris. He is the Sheikh of Al Jihad Center in South Africa, in Cape Town in South Africa, as well as he is the teacher of mathematics. We invite you to be together in this program. Inshallah, we are going to listen our Sheikh what we are going to talk. But today we are going to talk about the role of Islam during the struggle against apartheid policy in South Africa. So Sheikh is here to explain us how was the position of the Muslims during the struggle of apartheid policy in South Africa, how the Muslims did participate during this struggle. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Yes, you are welcome, Tanzania.
Thank you.
You are welcome, Dar es Salaam, as well as you are welcome in IBN TV Africa.
Thank you.
We feel pleasure actually to meet you in IBN TV Africa today. And inshallah, the viewers and listeners will be waiting from you something to talk to them. As I've already introduced to the viewers that today we are going to talk about the role of Islam during the struggle against apartheid policy. We all know what has been passing in South Africa during the apartheid policy. We want to know how was the position of Muslims as well as Islam struggling this apartheid policy in South Africa. You are welcome, Sheikh.
Shukran. A'udhu billah min ash-shaytanir rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wa bihi nasta'een. Wa nusalli wa nusallim ala Abdul Mustafa. Al-Musamma fi sama bi Ahmad wa fil ardi bi Muhammad. Allahumma salli Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. I'd like to thank you for hosting me here.
Thank you.
And it's an honor for me to be in Tanzania. It was the first country who helped South Africa against apartheid. And when Mandela was released, the first country he came was to say thank you to the Tanzanians.
I remember. Yes, exactly.
So yes, Tanzania is very dear to us. And I feel that I am just in another part of Africa, obviously, but I'm home.
Right.
I'm not a stranger. I'm with family. And that's how we see it. Your question was the role of Islam or Muslims during the struggle of apartheid. Now I have to go back 300 years ago. So it didn't start there of any time in the recent times, in the 1900s. So there are two stages actually here. The time in Cape Town when the Dutch have colonized Cape Town. At the time it was called the Cape of Good Hope.
Right.
And they also ruled an area which is called Malaysia or Indonesia today. There's where in South Africa Islam started from that time, and the exact date is 1694. There was a group of Malaysian resistant fighters against the Dutch rule in Malaysia or Indonesia today, but more precisely the Java island and Sumatra. So they resisted the Dutch occupation of Indonesia or Malaysia today, and many of them were captured, arrested, and they were banished very far from their homeland. And there were approximately 30 men, of which was Sheikh Yusuf. He was Sheikh, a resistance fighter, was also part of the leadership there in Malaysia at the time, and he was also one of the descendants of the Holy Prophet. So he and his group of resistant fighters, they were banished on the ship. It was called the Voetboeg, and they were in chains though they were also of royal blood. And then they were banished very far, never to go back to their countries and seeing their families and loved ones again. They arrived in what was called at the time the Cape of Good Hope in 1694. When they reached there, the shores, they were still held as captives, and then in an area in Cape Town, they were isolated from the rest of the population at the time. Now, at that time, there were also indigenous people, the indigenous African people living there, because, you know, it's Africa, so the indigenous people used to live there. What Sheikh Yusuf and his group did, when they arrived, they still resisted the Dutch. They still fought the Dutch. It never stopped in their blood. So what happened? They resisted, and they have integrated with the indigenous people. Even they've married some of them. Just interesting sake. You see, my skin is not black as Africa.
Exactly.
That's the result of the intermarriage of the Malaysian people with the African. We are, in Cape Town especially, we are the descendants or the products of those marriages.
Right.
So yes, I am half African and half Malay and half whatever, international man.
Yes.
So the Muslims at the time, through Sheikh Yusuf and his group, in 1694 still continued resisting the Dutch.
Okay.
And they continued, and they have integrated, they have assimilated with the indigenous peoples, whereas the indigenous peoples protected them against the Dutch. And that was the beginning in Islam, the beginning in South Africa. That's how Islam started for us. That was and then, yes, subsequently there were more resistance fighters in Malaysia, Indonesia, and then a second wave of prisoners came, and they also resisted. Like the first group, they've married within the indigenous peoples there, and they've settled there, and they died there. Today, we have what we call karamat, shrines of these people, and they are all over Cape Town where they are buried. Just for interesting sake, we have now, there is fires on the mountain of Cape Town because of the heat. So the fires start. There are some of their mazahir on the mountain, which is proof that the indigenous people lived there, and they've buried them there at the mountain. You know, one of the blessings of one of the karamat of those deceased ones, the fire don't touch their mazahir.
Oh.
It burns all around every year. Every year the fires on Cape Town mountain, and they are buried on several places in Cape Town on the mountain, but the fire never consumes their graves. It burns all around them, but never the graves or the shrines or the mazahir itself.
MashaAllah.
There's something special.
Exactly.
Many of them were also of the tariqah of Tasawwuf, the Qadariya movement.
Oh, okay.
And they came with a love of Ahlul Bayt also. So that was in their blood. In addition to, they were also, as we call it in Tashayyu, Sada. They were also Sayyids. Many of them were Sayyids. So that's the first group of Muslims, and that's how Islam started in South Africa, but more so in Cape Town.
Okay.
The second group that came were from India. They were slaves. All of them were slaves. Speaking about the first group,
Right.
were slaves, and they were sent to go work on the sugarcane farms of the white man. That's during the British occupation, and that started from 1820. From 1820 onwards now. That is when the second group of Muslims came. Amongst them, they were obviously Indians, the bigger group, but they were Hindu, and some of them were Buddhist, and some of them were Muslims. And they were also, many of them, of the Tariqah, and how the Tariqah Tasawwuf had a group. So, this is the history of how Islam arrived in South Africa, more so in Cape Town. The Indians arrived, they were sent actually what is called today Durban.
Yeah, Durban, right.
That's the biggest Indian community we have in South Africa, and they are in Johannesburg, in Cape Town, in various cities now. But these were the 2 points first in South Africa where they arrived. The Malays, original Malays in Cape Town, and then the Indian group in Durban. And from there it spread to the rest of the country. How Muslims contributed to the struggle against apartheid, I just told you, they already resisted the colonialists.
Yes, exactly.
In their own country, and in South Africa they never stopped, even though they were imprisoned, even though they were in chains.
They couldn't stop.
They never stopped fighting oppression. That's in our blood.
Right.
It's in our blood, it's in our DNA. We want peace, we want justice, we really don't love any human being, don't love injustice. So let me continue the history. You had now a huge white community, European community, and they were basically the 2 groups. That was the Dutch group, and they came in their thousands. And then subsequently from 1820 onwards, it was the British who took over from Dutch, and then they also came in their thousands and later in their millions. The population of South Africa today, I think, is approximately 57 million. Right, the white population is approximately 8 to 9 million. They are very big.
Really,
yes.
Really.
They are not anymore European. These are most probably now these are now probably the 4th or the 5th or the 6th generation of what used to be European. They are still ethnically, they're still ethnically European in the various countries in Europe, but they're in Africa.
They are in South Africans now.
And one thing we love in Africa, everybody is welcome.
MashaAllah.
We are very hospitable people. But we have problems if you want to take our land. That's another issue. That's another issue. Yes. So these, then, those are your 2 major European groups we have. Then after, okay, I'm now fast forwarding a little bit from the time of 1820, but let me just explain this. After 1948, when the National Party, the former apartheid government's National Party, when they won the elections. Now at that time, they won the elections, and then from 1948 till 1990, somewhere there, if you had a white skin, and if you were European, doesn't matter from which country in Europe, just get a ticket, or even if you can walk to South Africa, the government gave you everything. Everything. You could get a house and you could get a job and you're financially secured. Unfortunately, at the expense of the original indigenes of the country. That's how they segregated. I will speak about segregation also. I will speak about that also. But just to give you and then obviously, you know, during colonialism, they were approximately at the time, I think, 3% of the population, and they were in control of 94% of the land, which used to belong to the original indigenes of South Africa, but they took the land. You know the famous Archbishop Desmond Tutu? He's an Anglican bishop himself in the Anglican Church. He said the following. When the white man came, we had the land and they had the Bible. Suddenly the picture turned. We have the Bible and the white man's got the land. Yes, so that's the words of Archbishop. He is a Nobel laureate. He won a the Nobel Peace Prize in 1884 and well respected in South Africa also. So, right, let me go back to the history again.
It's very interesting.
Throughout this period of 1820 and 1694, when these two groups came, they resisted, at the time, oppression, or what we might also term colonialism. They fought, and they fought for equal justice, for social justice, and equality. And many of them were arrested, many of them were killed, many of them were buried over the years and over the decades and over the centuries. In fact, their graves are all around South Africa. And the ones who stood out, and I'm coming back to this point, the ones who stood out to be the pioneers of resistance are Muslims. Because Muslims first fought the Dutch and the English. And also the Indian late leader, Mahatma Gandhi, he lived in South Africa first. And he started his movement against the British in South Africa. Then he went to his homeland, India, and continued to resist the British in India. But where did he start? And I say this in inverted commas, thanks to apartheid in South Africa. So, yes, as you can see, we have a wealth of leadership, expert leadership to resist apartheid or colonialism in South Africa. And well represented. The African National Congress, the ANC, was formed in 1912. In 1912. And the aim was, at that time, many groups, they have resisted oppression and the colonialists at the time. So it wasn't well coordinated, you know, it was just pockets here and there. The ANC was created in 1912, under the umbrella of the ANC, where everybody wanted now to be part of the resistance officially, though it was also unofficial. In the individual's personal capacities, they resisted. So that gave more direction to the struggle against apartheid or against colonial rule. Why colonial rule? In 1910, that's 2 years before the ANC was formed, right, the Dutch and the English, they first fought their own wars in South Africa, where the Dutch and that group was fighting the British and their groups. And that's what is called the Anglo-Boer wars, where they were fighting each other because for resources and for land. In 1910, they thought, no, we can do something here. Why don't we come together? We form a union between the British people and the Dutch people. We unite and we together oppress and suppress the blacks. And then it was called the form of the Union in 1910, where the British and the Dutch came together, and together they now ruled, and they have dispossessed, and they've taken people from their lands. They have forcefully removed people from their houses where they lived, from their farms, etc. And it was all hell. Okay? Wasn't pleasant to have had the experience that you've lived here, your ancestors lived on that part of land, and now you must go find another piece of land somewhere where you have no land. The only means to support you was to cultivate the land which belonged to you and your tribe and your ancestors for centuries, and now you have nothing.
Yes.
That's how they have dispossessed the original indigenes of the country. And those people, within a very strategic plan, were all of a sudden made, over time and within a few years, all of a sudden, they're now poor. No homes, no land, no employment. And it was the start, although also even before that time, you know, but it was the start of tremendous hardship and suffering for millions who lived in South Africa. Then we had from the former white president or prime minister of South Africa. He was Dutch. He was named, and his name was Johannes. Okay. And that's why Johannesburg was also named after him.
That's right.
Because it's called Johannesburg. He was called General Johannes Smuts. And he participated in the war, Second World War, where he helped the British. And the British were very thankful. At that time, we never had independence from Britain yet, but you had autonomous rule. You could rule on your own, but under the British crown. Okay, hence we speak English.
Yes, exactly. It's well known. Right.
Yes, I say that with heartburn.
Actually, Sheikh, this is very interesting, actually. And what you've been speaking here, you really reminded me very, very far, because I once took a very short history of South Africa, the way how the movement started, and the same how you are explaining me today. But I didn't know that Muslims participated in this movement. I really didn't know before.
It's in the blood. Even in the ANC today, the ruling party, they didn't, before the British, etc., that's insignificant. We are Muslims are only 2%.
Okay.
Less than 2% of the population. An insignificant number. But because we were numerically very small in number, but we participated in the struggle, we are highly respected in government. Just to mention, I will mention a few who participate, and some of them who are in government today, and some of them who were in prison on Robben Island. Robben Island is an island slightly outside of Cape Town. You can see it is not far. It will take you with a ferry, I think just 10-15 minutes outside of Cape Town. You can see there is an island, okay? That was the notorious prison, like we have in America, what used to be Alcatraz. The notorious prison of America, that was an island, but it was created by the Dutch before. All the prisoners were kept there. And then around the island, it is cold water. and a lot of sharks around the water. So if you're trying to escape,
It's dangerous.
many Muslims were imprisoned on that island and they swam
Oh,
to the seashore. And some of them survived and still continued, and they married within the indigenous people, the Nguni people who lived there around Cape Town, and they helped the Muslims. And Muslims taught them Islam,
Yes.
and taught them how to fight against the oppressor.
yes.
That's our pride. That is our pride. From 1948, the National Party started and they won the elections. After 1948, they declared that only white people have the right to vote. No one else is allowed to vote. We can vote, but only Indian with Indian, the Malay and colored people were there, the blacks amongst them. But national elections, no.
Not allowed.
Only whites were allowed. Then in 1960 or 64, it was called the Group Areas Act, where now this is Dar es Salaam. This is a city where you don't have groups in a particular area.
Oh, okay.
South African city, and I think Israel as well, and that's definitely Israel, definitely, is unique cities in the world. It was built with the idea that the color of your skin will determine where you will live in the city. And within one city you had the white areas, and these are always the best areas. Then you had your black areas, then you had your Indian areas, and then you had your colored. The colored is what? It's the mixed breed between your white and your black.
Okay.
Maybe me, I don't know. Okay.
Yes.
So in one city, you have these various areas, and you needed a passport
To pass
to pass from one area to the other.
in the same city.
In the same city. What was called a dom pass. What was called, you needed a permit.
Oh,
You must carry the permit. If I move from, I don't know,
maybe let's say Mikocheni
yes,
to town.
yes, you needed a pass.
Oh, oh.
And for example, just to give an example, you are black now,
Yes,
okay?
right.
I'm white. If the police find us, we will be arrested. We are not allowed, mixed people are not allowed, we are not allowed to mix under one roof. They will arrest us.
White and black.
Yes, it's complete segregation.
Oh, oh.
You even had your buses.
Oh.
In front of the buses, whites, and then at the back, very small area, blacks, Indians, coloreds there. Even the metro trains,
Yes.
all segregated. The beaches was written on the beaches, whites only. The schools,
The same.
everything was segregated. You could not have gone to a white area where the cinemas were.
Oh,
You needed a permit from the minister
to go there.
to go there. And that's how they've kept South Africa white European. And the rest, so South Africa is a country, Europe and Africa live together. You will find Europe in South Africa and looks like Europe, definitely. Well developed economy,
Yes.
well developed infrastructure. You go to the black areas, oh God. Inferior. Right, give you an example. I'm a teacher.
Yes.
I teach. We still have today your white schools that was built for white people only.
Right.
Very good facilities, swimming pools and all the facilities you need. It's the best. It's white schools. You know, when you say white schools, that's the best.
Cream.
It's the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
You go to our schools, you know, colored schools, we don't even have swimming pools. We don't even sometimes have whiteboards. Or sometimes the roof is broken. Sometimes there's no toilets. This is unheard of in the white areas. So you as a child, and this is very important, you as a child, you're a black child, or you're a colored child, or an Indian child, you see your peer, white child, the same age like you, but he didn't have everything. What's wrong with me? So immediately you as a child develop inferior complex.
Yes.
There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your skin. Because why do I have nothing?
Right.
And why do they have everything?
Yes.
So over the years, and you also been treated. If the police would find a black man or a colored man or Indian man on a part of the beach which is written whites only, they would beat you. They would arrest you. That's how apartheid was. Right? Apartheid comes from the Dutch word apart.
Okay.
Apartness. To be apart. That's apartheid. The state of being apart from each other.
Yeah, separation.
Separation.
Oh.
It must be because of the color of your skin. And since 1948, it went worse. Yes. It went very bad. From colonialism, which was already bad, already dispossession took place during that time. From 1948, with the National Party, the former National Party, they don't exist anymore.
Before NIC.
Yes, before the ANC.
Yes.
ANC existed at that time and still continued with the fighting.
Yes.
It's just from 1960 something, when Mandela was arrested with some of the others, some of the other leaders, they then decided, we can't talk anymore to the white man. He don't listen. He don't listen to our complaints. We complain, we have rallies, we have protests. They don't listen anymore. Now we have to take up the arms. We have to take up the gun. That's the language they understand.
Oh.
And it was Tanzania was the first country who helped, in addition to India and many of the rest of the world, you know, they helped South Africa.
Right.
But it was Tanzania, the first country, who extended their hand of friendship to the resistance movement against apartheid. And we had many leaders, Muslim leaders, who were imprisoned and killed. One of them is Ahmad Timol.
Okay.
They said he was arrested, Muslim, Indian, but he fought against apartheid. They said he committed suicide in prison, but they threw him from the building. And there was never an autopsy done on his body. All the autopsy or the coroner's reports were all fabricated. That's one of the Muslim resistant fighters. The most famous one is Imam Abdullah Haroon of Cape Town, Malay. And today we even have a street named after him.
Oh, okay.
He was Muslim, not aligned to any party, but respected everybody, loved everybody who resisted injustice, who resisted oppression, apartheid. And he did it. He was an imam, a sheikh in one of the areas which is today a white area, but before it was a colored area, or some original people, original indigenous lived there, which is called Claremont in Cape Town. Stegman Road, Claremont is there where he was imam, and he himself spoke out, and he organized a lot of rallies and protests against the apartheid government in 1969. He was arrested and he was killed. So today we consider him as a shaheed, Imam Abdullah Haroon.
Right.
And it's very strange, you know, we don't have earthquakes in Cape Town. we don't have these natural disasters,
yes,
you know,
exactly.
earthquakes, etc.
Earthquake and others.
But this is something, it's mystical here, it's very strange. After his death, on the 3rd night, and the 7th day, and the 40th day, we had earthquakes in Cape Town.
Oh.
Never ever recorded. You don't know the reason.
Oh.
You don't know the significance. There is some inayatul ilahi,
Yes.
help of Allah, but we can't pinpoint currently why and how. But that's the only time when we have recorded an earthquake in modern day Cape Town, that it happened coincidentally on the 3rd night, the 7th night, and the 40th night in Cape Town. That is Imam Abdullah Haroon. Then we have Fatima Mir, Professor Fatima Mir. She was also instrumental in the ANC, respected. Her origin is Indian, but she resisted. She resisted. Then there is also the former Speaker of Parliament, this after 1994, that's Professor Jinwala. She was also Indian and Muslim, and still Muslims, sorry. And then there are also the comrade, we call them Comrade Abdullah Umar. He was the Minister of Justice in the government of Mandela the first 5 years. He was Muslim, and he fought, though they were socialist at the time, but these are the Muslim contributions, and now well respected in the ANC. Then, not to forget also, the Islamic Republic have contributed tremendously to the struggle against apartheid, and Mandela paid a visit in the Islamic Republic. I was in Qum at the time, and he visited there, and it was under the former president, who is now late, that is Sheikh Rafsanjani, and yes. So this is in a nutshell, brief. Though it was a lot of words.
Sheikh, exactly. Although you said that this is in short, but what you have been benefiting from this story is more wide.
Yes.
Sheikh, do you want to tell me at present the positions of the Muslims in South Africa, as well as the way how Islam is respected during to this, what you have been saying to us? We have seen that actually Muslims have participated a lot in struggling against apartheid police. Now, at present, we want to know at present now. We know that at least in South Africa now, it's said you are now at least in a good position, right? How is the Islam as well as Muslims respected in South Africa after this all contribution which they have shown?
You see, colonialism and apartheid, it caused more problems.
Right.
For now, what is called the formerly disadvantaged people.
Right.
I don't like the term, it's a white man term. But okay, those who were dispossessed, those who were not recognized under apartheid, and those who were at the receiving end of the wrath, of the anger of the apartheid government at the time. Apartheid government from 1948 until 1994, officially. That's when apartheid started. But apartheid started way before 1948. Since the apartheid started when the Dutch came in 1694, and when the English came in 1820, when they already started to send in the armies and to take over the land. Yes. So that's colonialism. So apartheid was just an extension of colonialism. It was just another face of colonialism. So when you don't have land, your children won't have land. Your grandchildren won't have land. You are unemployed. It causes a lot of social problems.
Yes.
Unemployment. You can't find work. Now let me just explain something. Under apartheid, because I need to explain this so that you can understand where we are now. Under apartheid, many African states in South Africa was created to keep blacks in black country, not in South Africa, because South Africa is Europe.
Yes.
So that's the madness. That's just how they've created. They've created Bantustans inside South Africa to keep blacks or the original people who are black in their original areas, not to move to Cape Town or to Johannesburg or to Durban. And say, for example, you live what was called Transkei. That was created for the Xhosa tribe. Then there was Botutatsuana and Venda, and there was Ciskei, etc. There were 5 or 6 of these, and they all had their own governments with their own presidents, which wasn't recognized by the world.
Right.
Okay, and this is what Israel is also trying to do, you know.
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
But in South Africa it failed. Any case, so you live in a Bantustan like that. You're a man. You have your wife there.
Right.
You have your children there. The only thing you could do was to find work in Cape Town, which is almost 1,000 kilometers. But for you to move from there till Cape Town, you needed that permit, which you could get because if you can motivate, I want to go work on the white man's farm, or the white man's shop, or the white man's factory, then they allow, because they needed labor.
Exactly.
And who provided the labor? Majority Africans. So yes, you could get
the permit.
Your permit. Now you leave your family alone, your wife alone, your children alone. You don't see them after a year or 2, or sometimes never. What do? You fall in love with someone else.
Yes, there only.
You fall in love with someone else. Now here you have children, and there you have a wife too. This is how apartheid, they've targeted families to break them up. Why? Now your children, single parenthood, mother must raise her own children. Father's drinking. When they used to pay the black man on the farms, not with money, with food and with wine. That's how they used to intoxicate the black people, to keep them drunk and to give them also the religion of theirs. Okay? If you're drunk, are you going to think about all your stress?
You can't think even about family.
You can't. You lose your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your will to live. They kill it. And so you had millions of Africans who originally lived within the group, in the tribe, and the tribe protected the families. Now that is broken. So the social problems we have today, that's the drug problems.
Yes, exactly.
Because there is no male role models who keep the family and then the society unit intact. We have gangsters, lot of gangsters, Cape Town or in Johannesburg, South Africa. We pride, I don't say this with pride, but we have the highest crime rate in the world. It's the murder capital of all the countries in the world, South Africa. We are, because of our past. We are trying now in that transition period to find ourselves still. It will take time. 320 years it took apartheid or colonialism to have destroyed a nation. I'm not just speaking about South Africa. I'm not speaking about the rest of the world. The ANC since 1994, it's illogical that they can address all the problems. The major problem of apartheid was removed,
Right.
but the heritage is still there.
Sure.
You still have today your whites who live in your white areas and they still control the economy.
Yes.
You still have your whites who live in their areas, your blacks who live in their areas, and we don't mix. So today we have economic apartheid and not political apartheid.
Yeah.
Yeah, political apartheid is gone. But still today, when I see, and that is my generation, okay, I find it difficult to integrate with a white man. A white man from South Africa. Why? I remember.
Sure.
Only to give you an example. My own grandfather. You know, you have the railway station and then you have the platform.
Yeah, right.
Where you walk on and then you get onto. In South Africa, there's under apartheid, you had only a platform for whites. Then for the coloreds and the blacks, there were no platform, there was a step. There were 2 steps or 3 steps, you get on and then onto the plane. The platform was written. There was a police, the railway police would police the stations that we don't mix. It was enforced. When I think I was 5 or 6 years old when I traveled with my grandfather. So we waited for the train.
Right.
And then the train came. So he stepped on the steps. He wasn't allowed. We weren't allowed to be on the platform.
Yes.
But on the steps we had to wait there, and then we boarded the train. But as he stepped on the train, he tripped.
Oh.
And he hurt his leg. And that leg, it bothered him for many years to come. And eventually he died because of that wound. It never healed. I was 5 years old. I saw this.
Yes.
What do you think that makes an impression in my mind as a child? Why? They killed?
Yeah.
But he wasn't killed by the gun or the police.
Yeah.
But this is the infrastructure of apartheid that was created.
Yes.
So as a child, many years later, I thought, why? Why us? What's wrong with me? And then all these contributed to my political awareness. Just to give you an example.
Sure. Yes.
I think I was in a Roman Catholic primary school there in Cape Town. It's called St. Clement's Primary School. And opposite was an open field, and there was always a watchman.
Okay.
Or a security guard who must look after.
Yeah.
They were busy building the white people, and it was always the black man. So this was in 1976 or 77.
Okay.
That's the height of apartheid, you know. And so there was the black man, and he had a child, my age, 4 or 5 years old. I was also, I think, 5, 6 years old. And here the child saw me. I came from school, and he happened to be also there near the edge of the field, which was opposite the school. And he came running towards me. And I saw this black child. It's the devil. And the devil's child is running towards me. So I was running also, afraid of this devil's child. You know, that's how they imprinted in us. The more you are black, the more evil you are. Even the word black market, even black magic, all European thinking against everything that's black. So you as a non-black African, or you as a non-black person, you're a bit scared.
Yes. Wow.
You were a bit scared. You were, oh, that child.
No.
I was 5 years old and he was, I think, 4 or 5 years old
Same
too.
age.
And he just wanted to play.
Yeah.
He just wanted to play.
With you.
And I was afraid because in our schools we were taught, black people are evil. That's what apartheid did.
Yes.
To separate the people. And though we were also discriminated against,
Yeah.
but you know, the echelons was like the white on top.
Pyramids.
Yes, the pyramid, the white on top.
Yeah.
Then you have the Indian colored in the middle, and then the black at the bottom. And it's all the junoon, the madness of these.
Sheikh,
That was a mouthful.
Yes, we have a lot to speak, but actually,
Yes.
Due to our also timing,
Yes.
I want you to rest now.
Yes.
Because whoever will hear this actually will be very interested. And we are also proud as Tanzanians that you have recognized our contribution to South Africa.
Yes,
We are really
yes,
proud of that.
yes,
And also, I would like to take this chance to thank you, Sheikh, for participating in this program also. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm honored again,
Yes,
and I
yeah.
say this from the depth of my heart.
Yes.
You helped us against apartheid. And it's my honor to be with brothers.
Inshallah.
With brothers who have helped us.
Yes.
And as we fought hand in hand against colonialism and against apartheid, now our struggle and fight is different.
Yes.
Help building communities. Help to develop communities. And this is, we can only do it under the umbrella
Yes.
of unity.
Exactly. Exactly.
Of unity.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Sheikh. And you are also welcome, Tanzania, again and again. I hope this will not be your last trip to visit Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. We need you more and more because we need to know more from you also.
Yes, certainly, certainly.
Inshallah. Dear viewers and listeners, this is the end of our program of today. Inshallah, I was here with the Sheikh Abdullah Shafick Aris from South Africa, Cape Town. And also you are with me, Mujahid Rashidi. Thank you very much. And wa hadha assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.